Hello everyone, welcome to Chapter 1 channel. Today I'm going to talk about a movie named Innocence. I hope you enjoy. In the Korean town of Daejeon, the story begins with a funeral. Chu, the village mayor, is there with his friends, sipping rice wine. He goes to console Hwa-ya, whose husband recently died, a little later, but she keeps singing. Abruptly, the sister of her deceased husband shows in and yells at Hwa-ya to summon her daughter to the funeral. Hwa-ya, on the other hand, tells her sister-in-law to keep out of it while grabbing her by the hair. The males who are consuming the rice wine begin to collapse at about the same moment, as they have been poisoned. In the next scene, we meet Yong-in, a lawyer who has just won a case. Her boss hands her some money and says he wants her to help him with a Supreme Court appeal. Yong-in refuses, advising him to focus on the legal aspects of the case rather than the money, warning that representing criminals will make them criminals too. During their conversation, she sees a news report about the poisoned rice wine, where several men were poisoned and one died. The report also reveals that Hwa-ya, the suspected culprit, has been arrested. Shocked, Yong-in quickly heads to Daejeon, as Hwa-ya is her mother. On her journey back, Yong-in recalls her difficult childhood in the village, filled with humiliation. In a flashback, we see that her father mistreated her, often physically assaulting her. He also refused to let her attend university. She had begged her mother for support, but Hwa-ya always said they couldn't afford it. Eventually, Yong-in had enough and fled the village, hoping for a better future. When she arrives in Daejeon, Yong-in visits her mother in prison. Hwa-ya doesn't recognize her, so Yong-in introduces herself as a lawyer and asks about the funeral. Hwa-ya, however, has forgotten everything. Yong-in realizes that her mother is suffering from worsening dementia. Afterward, she meets a police officer named Shioku and starts investigating the case. She notices pesticide bottles that were used for the poisoning. Meanwhile, her autistic brother, Young-soo, is running around the crime scene. Shioku gets angry and tries to hit him, but Yong-in stops him. In court the following day, it is disclosed that Hwa-ya's clothing contains the same pesticides as those discovered in her home. According to a witness, Hwa-ya and her son were sawn near the rice wine pot, surrounded by pesticides. Furious, Hwa-ya declares her kid is innocent. Following the trial, an irate mob hurls objects at Hwa-ya as she is brought to the prison. Yong-in accuses her mother's attorney of failing to adequately defend her. Offended, the attorney withdraws from the case. With no other options, Yong-in decides to take on her mother's case herself and convinces her boss to let her. During her investigation, she finds that most of the victims' families blame Hwa-ya. She also visits her uncle, who tells her not to hate her mother, calling her a tragic figure. Yong-in believes that her mother confessed just to protect Young-soo. A detective friend later gives her CCTV footage showing Shioku mishandling the investigation. Yong-in shows the video in court and claims her mother was tricked into making a confession. In order to show that the evidence had been altered, she also displays pictures taken at the scene of the crime. She also shows a picture of Shioku with a witness and the prosecutor, which suggests more corruption. She implies that the witness is lying when she discloses that the witness and the prior attorney are both the victim's sons. Yong-in then asks for Hwa-ya's release so she can get dementia therapy. In the meantime, Shioku, the witness, and the former attorney meet with Mayor Chu to talk about the case. The mayor chastises them and insists that Hwa-ya be held in custody once more, which is shocking. Elsewhere, Yong-in drives her mother to the hospital for treatment. While consulting with the doctor receives a message from the hospital director and quickly leaves. When Yong-in returns to her mother's hospital room, she finds that Hwa-ya has disappeared. Soon after, the police find Hwa-ya near a lake, and the court orders her to be sent back to prison. At this point, Yong-in is approached by a police officer named Wang Yang, an old childhood friend. He shows her some old footage of Hwa-ya at the police station, where Hwa-ya claimed that her husband had been murdered and that some of his friends were involved. However, due to her mental state, her concerns were dismissed. Wang Yang also tells Yong-in about a casino that Mayor Chu is constructing outside the village. Meanwhile, Mayor Chu is frustrated because delays in the casino construction are preventing him from receiving payments. It's also revealed that Mayor Chu had instructed the doctor to stop Hwa-ya's treatment. Suspicious of the former lawyer's intentions, Yong-in visits him to find out why he took her mother's case and asks him about the casino, but he doesn't give any information. After leaving, Yong-in realizes she left her phone in the office, secretly recording the conversation. When she returns to retrieve it, she overhears the lawyer calling the mayor to inform him about her visit. When Yong-in returns to the crime scene later, he finds footprints. An intruder attacks her as she follows them, but she is able to catch a glimpse of his face before he can flee. Yong-in takes the lighter that the intruder dropped to the police. However, The policeman informs her the following day that the lighter is not acceptable as proof. Yong-in goes to pay her respects at the witness's father's funeral shortly after his death, as he was also one of the poison victims. In the meantime, a recently appointed prosecutor deceives Young-soo and takes some of the photos from his phone. Later, a gang ambushes Yong-in and her brother as they are making their way home, warning Yong-in to keep out of the case as they depart. In court the next day, the prosecutor presents photos showing Hwa-ya continuing to give alcohol to her sick husband. He also insists that Young-soo testify, despite his autism. Although Yong-in wants to protect her brother from testifying, she is unable to change the judge's decision. She then begins coaching Young-soo at home, teaching him to say "I'm not sure" when she shakes her head and "that's right" when she nods. During one practice session, Young-soo reveals that their father always said he was stupid because of Yong-in. It's revealed that Yong-in accidentally dropped Young-soo when he was a baby, and their father blamed her for his condition. However, Hwa-ya, being intelligent, always defended Yong-in and explained that Young-soo was born autistic. In court the next day, the prosecutor manipulates Young-soo into admitting that he poured the poisoned wine. Hearing this, Hwa-ya explodes in rage and confesses that she is the one responsible for the crime and that her son is innocent. Amid the rising tension, Hwa-ya collapses and is rushed to the hospital, while Young-soo is taken into custody. Determined to save her family, Yong-in digs deeper into the case and uncovers that everyone involved seems to have a connection to it. She starts wondering why Mayor Chu harbors such hatred toward her mother. Elsewhere, the prosecutor tells Hwa-ya that her son will be safe as long as she continues to confess. Later, when Yong-in visits her mother and asks if she recognizes her, Hwa-ya doesn't remember her and instead keeps asking about Young-soo, which frustrates Yong-in. Hwa-ya gets sad as she remembers her daughter after Yong-in leaves. Wang Yang apprehends an intruder later that evening, but the prosecutor intervenes and frees him. Yong-in follows the van that carried him, and Wang Yang, frustrated, follows the invader. She discovers after a few hours that the witness is the van driver. She breaks inside the van and discovers papers, a phone concealed in her father's clothing, and a shredded wedding picture of her mother. She learns that the groom's name was Chun-woo when she puts the picture back together. Yong-in then visits one of the hospitalized poisoning victims and asks about Chun-woo. The victim explains that Chun-woo was a friend of the quarry manager and was set to take over as the new boss. However, when the mayor and others learned of this, they became enraged since they felt entitled to the position. By the mayor's orders, they drowned Chun-woo. Hwa-ya was devastated by her husband's death, and in her vulnerable state, she married one of the murderers, Tae-soo. Several months later, Tae-soo became the new quarry boss. As Yong-in drives to meet Wang Yang, she calls to share everything she's learned about the mayor's crimes and Chun-woo. Unfortunately, she gets into a car accident, orchestrated by the mayor. After waking up in the hospital, Wang Yang gives her a construction map he obtained from the suspect. She then confronts the mayor about the casino, but he feigns ignorance. She also questions him about his relationship with her father and asks him to testify in court, which he agrees to do, but requests to do so later. The next day in court, Yong-in calls her uncle as a witness. He reveals that Tae-soo was a powerful figure while managing the quarry but was tricked into losing all his money. He had tried to enter politics, but the mayor's slander campaign ruined his chances. As a result, the village turned against him, leaving him broke and hopeless. He even threatened to kill the perpetrators using pesticides. Following this, Yong-in calls Mayor Chu to the stand. She claims that the mayor threatened the former councilman to obtain his nomination and that the mayor was involved in the poisoning case. Predictably, the mayor denies these accusations. She also brings up the casino, but he continues to deny any involvement. Yong-in then presents the intruder as a witness, who admits that Mr. Bang, the head of the construction company, hired him to retrieve documents in exchange for a plot of land. Yong-in later repairs her father Tae-soo's phone and finds a video in which he accuses Hwa-ya of poisoning him out of revenge for Chun-woo. She then confronts her mother, who finally reveals the truth. Hwa-ya explains that she overheard the mayor and her new husband discussing how they killed Chun-woo. In retaliation, she slowly poisoned Tae-soo's food until he died. Still seeking justice, she poisoned the rice wine at the funeral for the people responsible for Chun-woo's death. Hwa-ya also admits that she deeply loved her first husband, Chun-woo, and even attempted suicide after his death, but Tae-soo stopped her. Tae-soo promised to raise her child as his own, revealing that Chun-woo is actually Yong-in's biological father. Hwa-ya eventually married Tae-soo to protect Yong-in, but she was heartbroken after her daughter left, blaming herself for everything. As Hwa-ya recognizes Yong-in, they embrace, both of them emotional. Yong-in apologizes to her mother for leaving her behind. In court, Yong-in presents a map showing that the mayor's wife's family members are listed as landowners. She reveals that the mayor tricked her father and the villagers into believing the land was valuable, and he is now using the casino project to fund his political campaign. She also reveals that Tai-Su was the one who killed her biological father, Chun-Woo. Yong-in further argues that Tai-Su orchestrated his own death and poisoned the other villagers, all to protect his secret. Following the trial, the mayor's popularity declines, and the villagers begin to suspect him of wrongdoing. The next day, Yong-in calls her brother to the stand to demonstrate that Tai-Su despised the mayor and had planned to kill him. She also argues that her mother, who can't even recognize her own daughter due to her dementia, could not have committed the crime. Ya is found not guilty by the judge after hearing all the evidence. Yong-in is asked by the prosecutor outside the courtroom if she genuinely thinks her mother is innocent. Her mother has had enough suffering, she replies. Yong-in, her mother, and her brother make their way back home together in the last scene. Yong-in tosses the phone into the water as she thinks back on her early years spent with her mother, finally erasing the unpleasant past. So, this was the movie named Innocence. I hope that you liked it. Subscribe to my channel for more recap. Take care everyone.